So here we are, and today at work I got to thinking, which means numbers happen. So I'm not gonna write it all on the board because it's gonna take too long, and I want to watch some hockey. So I did the video a few days ago where I talked about how I think Brent Burns is gonna be an insider for the Norris Trophy personally, if he keeps playing the way he is now. And people brought up his plus minus, which is fine, but there's a problem. Plus minus is a tricky stat. Plus minus can indicate that maybe a guy's being overplayed, or maybe his team isn't great. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to be fair. Let's do this. And it's a funny thing that happens because I looked at the plus minuses going back 5 years. So currently, and I just looked at defensemen, the number one defenseman in plus minus is Zdeno Chara with a plus 29. Victor Hedman second with a plus 24. Then Josh Manson with a plus 22. So Ducks fans are going to be, that's right, Manson's awesome. And they're kind of right. Charlie McAvoy is fourth at plus 21. You guys sure he won't get in on the Calder race? Esa Lindell at plus 20. Anton Strawman at plus 20. Jonas Brodin at plus 19. Dan Girardi at plus 18. Matt Grzelcyk at plus 18. Yes, Matt Grzelcyk of Boston. Drew Doughty at plus 17. Let's look back at last year. Let's just look back at last year. Number one in plus minus, Ryan Suter at plus 33. Orpik plus 32. Justin Schultz plus 27. I got grilled for putting him in the top 10 defensemen in the league back during the summer. Turns out I was wrong. He hasn't been able to come anywhere near repeating that due to both injuries and just a slow start to the season. Ian Cole plus 26. Dennis Seidenberg plus 25. Jake Gardner plus 24. Jack Johnson plus 23. Carl Alsner plus 23. Brett Pesce plus 23. Jacob Slavin plus 23. I don't think anybody right now will look at Johnson and say that he's a Norris contender. 15-16, Brian Campbell led the way at plus 21. Colton Parayko at plus 28. Oli Mata plus 27. Ryan McDonough plus 26. Drew Doughty plus 24. John Klingberg plus 22. Alex Goligoski plus 21. Victor Hedman plus 21. Aaron Ekblad plus 18. Dan Girardi plus 18. Why don't we go back further? 14-15. Number one in plus minus, Jason Garrison plus 27. Nicholas Chalmerson plus 25. Kevin Klein plus 24. Ryan McDonough plus 23. Anton Strawman plus 22. Andrei Markov plus 22. Mark Mathot plus 22. PK Subban plus 21. Jonas Brodin plus 21. And Kevin Miller of the Bruins plus 20. And last but not least, the 13-14 season, because I said 5 years. Matt Niskanen plus 33. Mark-Edward Vlasic plus 31. John Boychuk plus 31. Hampus Lindholm plus 29. Jay Bouwmeester plus 26. Francois Beauchemin plus 26. Brent Burns plus 26. There he is. Zdeno Chara plus 25. Brent Seabrook plus 23. Duncan Keith plus 22. And he was tied for 10th with Matt Bartkowski and Dougie Hamilton, who also had plus 22s. So why read all that off? Because if you're hearing those names, you're doing two things. One, you're saying, oh yeah, he's really good. And two, you're saying, oh no, he wasn't very good. He was just on a really good team. So those are the plus-minus numbers as we have it. Now, I looked at the numbers with just with defensemen on the Sharks. Joakim Ryan leads the way with a plus 8. Justin Braun is a plus 6. Mark-Edward Vlasic, plus 5. Justin DeMello, plus 3. Tim Heed is a minus 1. Paul Martin's a minus 4, but he only played 3 games. And Brendan Dillon's a minus 8. And of course, everybody just can't wait to roast Dillon, and I like Dillon. But the ice time that Burns has had over the last 10 games, again, this is just running the numbers. 30 minutes and 55 seconds in the last game played. 21 minutes, 32 seconds the game before that. 23 minutes, 35 seconds. 25 minutes, 41 seconds. 24 minutes, 42 seconds. 25 minutes, 45 seconds. 25 minutes, 51. 23:28. 24:36. And 29:01. So Burns plays a lot, and he's a minus 5 in 10 games. Now, either Peter DeBoer has no idea what he's doing defensively and keeps putting this guy out there all the time, even though he's a defensive liability, or the numbers are deceptive. It's one or the other. Now, you look over his career. And in 16-17, so this past season, he was a plus 19. The year before that, he was a minus 5. The year before that, a minus 9. In 13-14, as I reported here, he was a plus 26. He was top 10. 12-13, he was a 0. 11-12, he was a plus 8. That's his entire time as a San Jose Shark. That doesn't include any of his time in Minnesota. So here's my key question. Burns is a disaster defensively. Don't even have him in the conversation for the Norris. But he's got 5 goals and 20 assists on the power play this year. Power play points don't go towards plus minus. And plus minus does not tell the story. And it hasn't told the story in a long time, because if it did, then in 14-15, Jason Garrison would not have been the #1 defenseman in the league in plus minus. And it's one of these cherry-picking things. And I understand there are people who don't like Brent Burns, and that's fine. But when I'm looking at the stats right now, and I look and I see that, this is a guy who traditionally, he's played 932 games, he's got 543 points in his career. For his career, he's a minus player. He's a minus 4. Keep in mind, the Norris Trophy should be about, that defensive aspect of the game. But it hasn't been about the defensive aspect of the game for a very long time. It hasn't been about the defensive aspect of the game since, I would say, probably the mid to late 80s. Now, I'm not trying to disparage guys like Bork and Lidstrom and guys who've won multiple trophies. Absolutely not. If you win a Norris Trophy, you're an excellent defenseman. But there's always going to be that skew towards the points. So when I say the guy who wears this jersey, not Thomas Hertl, obviously, but, put Burns' number here. When I say that I think Burns right now would be probably neck and neck with Klingberg, and if he keeps playing the way he's been playing lately and putting up those amount of points, he's probably going to end up getting that Norris Trophy. I'm not saying he's the best defenseman in the league. I'm saying that for what they measure, when you look at the Norris Trophy, when you look at the winners, is it defense? Erik Karlsson's a good example. So, Karlsson this year, we can all agree, has not had a very solid season. But Erik Karlsson, has he been the best defensive defenseman in the league? We've talked, and I've said it myself. He's been ripped off. He should have had Norris trophies he didn't get. But is it his defense? No, it's the highlight reel goals. It's the game winners. It's his clutch play. That's why people think he should win Norris trophies. Does Erik Karlsson, when he's healthy, make fantastic defensive decisions? Absolutely. Would I put him as the best defensive defenseman in the league? No. And the Norris Trophy is not that. And I've talked about the Rod Langway Award, and I'm not the only one that's called it that, because Rod Langway was the last pure defenseman to win the award. Since Langway, it hasn't been a pure defenseman that's won the Norris, which seems weird. Because we can all agree that a guy like Mark Mathot's name comes up as a for instance. Does Erik Karlsson get that offensive freedom without Mark Mathot covering for him? Probably not. Does Mark Mathot cover up for mistakes made by Erik Karlsson? Absolutely. So when Mark Mathot goes to Dallas, does that negatively impact Erik Karlsson? Sure. Are we more likely to notice when Erik Karlsson screws up? Yep. Because he doesn't have, and it's no insult to whoever Ottawa puts with him, but Mathot had this certain amount of synergy with Karlsson. Burns is great on the power play. And yes, Burns is a converted forward that went back to the blue line. There's another guy who did that too, Byfuglien. I didn't mention Byfuglien's name once when I was talking about plus minus. And people are going to say, because Winnipeg wasn't that good. But Winnipeg's one of the best teams in the league this year. Why isn't he one of the top 10 in plus minus? And there you go. So plus minus is a flawed statistic, and it is one that I've heard a lot of people say we should just get rid of. The problem with that is that the NHL's really behind when it comes to statistics. Let's be honest. If you pick up the NHL Guide and Record book, you won't find a goalie save percentage in there when they show the goalies. And you're going to find plus minus in there for players, and you're not going to find any of the advanced statistics in there. They just don't print it. So The league itself is behind the times. And it is a statistic that doesn't tell you the whole story. If Burns comes out of a game as a minus, it doesn't necessarily mean he had a bad game. It means he was on the ice with players, and he may have been playing a whole lot that game. So if San Jose had a bad game overall and he played 30 minutes in it, he's going to be a -2 or a -3 in that game. And it may have nothing to do with him. So, you know, if his plus-minus stays in that -20 range, he probably doesn't get the Norris, but he'll get nominated. And it'll cause a big ruckus. But remember, the last time that Jonathan Toews won a Selke Trophy, he didn't have the defensive numbers either. We're not even talking about plus-minus with Toews. We're just talking about just straight defensive numbers. The NHL gives awards very often based on reputation and on whether or not a guy's held the award before. And when you're talking about a West Coast team, a lot of the voters on the East Coast may not be staying up late to watch the games. They're only watching the highlights the next day. There's only a certain number of hours in the day. So that's something that I consider too when I talk about doing leaders for trophies and who I think is going to win each trophy. And that's why I think right now Brent Burns has at least an even shot at it. Does Klingberg deserve it? Probably. He's at least starting to get into that conversation where, because it's not just a hot start now, it's just he's playing really well consistently, Klingberg is very likely right now to be a top 3. But I think you have to watch what Hedman does for the last 30 games and how well he plays. And Hedman could steal it from everybody. But again, it's one man's opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.